Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to the Appalachian Institute for Digital Evidence talks. My name is PowerCycle, and my presentation is going to be on basically DDoS and how to defend yourself against an angry internet mob. So basically, what I've come up with are 4 of the just top-level things that you need to do to win. I know a lot of people like to compare DDoS and stuff to war, and it's I like that people are kind of getting away from that. But I think the overall principles of Sun Tzu and those things really do apply. And the most important thing is communication. A DDoS itself is usually a shock to your system. When something happens as a shock, it's your reaction to it that is the whole key to everything. It's not that someone may attack you or is going to attack you or is in the process of attacking you. How you react to it is everything, because you can't control that part. So in communication, let me go through these real quick and I'll jump to that. In communication, that means you need to know who the people responsible are in your company, which most people probably already do, but you also need to know who are your carriers and who are your connections. If you're getting DDoS and it's your website, your carrier is not going to be happy with you. The most common reaction by any host is just to black hole your IP address because they don't want it to affect their other customers. It is in some terms of agreement that if you get DDoSed, they will just turn you off and they will not fight at all. That is the most common response to you getting DDoSed. So the answer is, who are you going to communicate with when it happens? How are you going to explain what's going on? How are they going to explain to you what's going on? Because if you don't know, they're not going to do anything for you. The next part is defense in depth, and that is with today's MySQL injection. A lot of people talk about defense in depth is gone because you just shoot right through the firewall when you make a regular request into the database server anyway. But as an overall principle, it still very much applies. If you get DDoSed and your web server is taken down, either by just the massive flood or the host just turning you off, how does that affect your communication? Is your email server and your web server on the same IP address? Is your VoIP server in the same data center on the same host vulnerable to the same DDoS? If one piece goes down, does your entire infrastructure goes down? That's the question. The depth is if one thing gets compromised, because part of what I'm going to explain later is you're going to get compromised. You're going to get attacked. It is inevitable. You probably already are hacked. If you don't come from that mindset and from that reaction to where you get over the emotional shock of what happens if it happens and just accept it and then start walking through who are the people I need to talk to, who are the people that are going to be asking questions, and what do I need to tell them? What is going to be the reaction to the uncontrollable? Part of that now comes from monitoring recording. Just knowing what's going on in your network. This is probably pretty well covered. Everybody knows about remote logging, and being able to monitor your CPU, your bandwidth, your interfaces, your different connections. Most people don't do recording which is one of the things I'm going to show in a couple of slides. And that is, when I was asked to speak here, is the thing that I think really applies to evidence. Logs may or may not show everything. They may show a piece of what's going on, but it may not show the whole story. And recording is the only thing I think that really mattered. So, and then after that is going to be after you take care of things internally, what's going to be your public response to what's just happened to you? Because usually a DDoS is meant to get a public response from someone. Okay. This is a random picture I pulled off the internet that people relate to the group known as Anonymous. The caption, for those of you on audio, says, "Oh fuck, the internet is here." And I actually want to take a minute to analyze this picture to give you an idea as to who's going to be DDoSing you. These are 4 operations, as they call them. Project Chanology against Scientology, Operation Payback, which was directed against ACS Law, Operation Payback, which expanded into attacking Visa.com, Master.com, and the PayPal blog.com, and then Operation HB Gary. So when I started out to describe Anonymous, I said Anonymous is an online community of hacktivists. But on finding this picture of Anonymous, I had to strike out the word online. The reason being is that they are real people that actually show up to real places. Maybe not in huge thousands numbers of crowds, but enough for people to take pictures, to get press. And that's really all it is about. But I wanted to kind of look at some of the posters that are in this photograph here. A couple of them are, and this was for a anti-Scientology demonstration. A couple of these signs in here are very, very specific to a cause. They really want you to get the point that they don't like Scientology and that they think Scientology kills. And at the time, there was a website, Why Are They Dead, that was popular among this group Anonymous, that they linked to people that they thought had died. And there were people who were really emotionally invested in that. And there are multiple signs for that cause in this picture. Also in this picture is a joke where it says, "Long cat is long," which is ridiculous and would never really be seen at a protest. Normal, political protests don't have comedic signs in them. Jon Stewart may be the only recent one. But, there's multiple people holding up even that sign. That was a team effort to make this joke at what is a serious demonstration of just a very few people who have now shown up, all of them, to disguise their faces and to be anonymous, not to really be any specific personality themselves, but just to make a statement. These are the people that took down Visa.com. And these are the people that took down MasterCard.com at the same time. And I think the caption is perfect. "Oh fuck, the internet is here." They're not mythical Chinese hackers that might have stolen this or that. They're just random people off the internet who have a cause or think it's funny. And if you can organize yourself and your companies and the people you work with to defend against these people, then you can win. I think one of the biggest repeated mistake in history is underestimating your opponent. If you want to secure yourself, really know who your enemy is and really know who they are, what they do, and as I'm going to show here, some of the things that they've done before and how they have operated and how you can survive. So first of all, communication. And the first rule in communication is don't panic. Don't go changing things thinking you've got the fix, that you've come up with the solution on the spot, and this is what you're going to do, and it's going to work. Don't worry about it, because it probably is not going to work. The solution you figured out to this problem on the spot has probably been tried other places. And no one else is going to know what you did. If you're really under attack by Anonymous, these people, they're in it for at least 48 hours, over a weekend. They could be in it for a week, maybe a month, and you got to sleep. So your reaction has to be a team effort, so you have to communicate inside your own group. And part of that is letting other people know what's going on. I'm about to make this change. I'm about to move this here. I'm about to restrict access, so maybe none of the salespeople are going to get access right now. But I need to tell all of the salespeople that none of them are going to get access right now, because I don't want them to panic and cause more of a problem. But it may be a necessary move right now for this hour to take. That goes along with the whole idea of initiating communication. When something happens, some event, people tend to shut down, try to tense up, they try to gather around whatever the conference call is, or the office that's going to be the command center, or whatever it is. But then they don't communicate outside that little circle. They start to give orders, but they don't tell people why, what's going on, or what else might be happening. I'll just close this out real quick with be specific. When you start communicating with, for instance, your host provider, because you're getting a 10 gig UDP flood on your website, that bill is going to add up really quick. It's going to add up so quick that it's going to be some negotiation by your accounting department because it was a one-time event and blah, 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 blah. So basically, you've got to get in there quickly and talk to them. So when you initiate communication with your provider, with your DNS provider, with your with anyone else, be really specific and put IP addresses in your emails. Don't say, we were under attack and our website's down. Say specifically, host.example.com was attacked. It is on IP address 10.10.4.2. It was hit by a UD flood at exactly this moment. These are the IP addresses we caught that were hitting us. Can you tell us what you saw? If you give them more information, the easier it is for them to find evidence of that and communicate back with you. If you don't know what you're talking about and you don't know what to ask for, then they don't know what to give you. I said this before. A is separate your different services. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. All those cliches. Really think about what happens when your website gets DDoS, when your public-facing infrastructure gets taken down. Are you going to be able to email and communicate internally? What happens if your email server is actually the target of the attack? Do you have means of communication already established with your providers that are outside of your email server? Do they have your cell phone numbers? Do they have a Gmail account that's set up specifically to handle situations involving email on your server? These are things that when you begin to communicate to your provider and say, we were attacked and this happened, and I need you to call me, I need this to be the contact person. If those channels of communications are already there and then you're just running back over the same path, it becomes very simple. B here is once you establish some protocol of what happens when you get attacked, don't let upper management or anyone really override their protocol. When you double check someone by them emailing you and then you calling them to verify the request that's going on, and you take the extra time and you disturb them when they just wanted to communicate by text, that's really doing your job. That's the whole point of being in security. It is anticipating that you're not being told the truth. And when salespeople and presidents and your friends ask you for the password to the root account of the server, you should really consider whether that's your friend or not. Whether it's some little personal thing you're dealing with, or whether you're protecting the Social Security, and private information of hundreds of thousands of people. Even if it's not financial, if it's the, school records of the students of this university. So, server logs, everybody should be doing. Everybody should be doing remote logging of those servers. PCAPs. And this right here is the important part that if you get anything out of my talk, this is that part. PCAPs are recording the network traffic off of the interface. The ways of attacking, or the different methods of DDoS, are a UDP flood, an ICMP flood, or some sort of TCP flood. The first two, UDP and ICMP, can be easily faked and can be easily massive. And the at least 10 gigs of an attack, and then on over 100 gigs when somebody's really, really mad at you. But the point being, the average interface at any hosting provider is going to be about 10 gigs. Maybe, usually the low-end stuff is only going to be a gig. If that's the size of your interface, you're getting a 10 gig flood, which is pretty common. That information is what you want to capture. That's your evidence. That's what you want to. That's what you want to come back to your providers to communicate with them, to say, look, these are the IPs that were attacking us. These are the IP range. Maybe they could only source route a particular. They could only spoof particular ranges from here to there. If it was a get flood, this is precisely the evidence where you can go back and start to prosecute. Okay, so TCP dump -C 5000, which means a count of 5,000 packets. -W means write the file name and then call it anything you like. -SO -A, that's going to say open up the entire packet for me, printed as ASCII. dash NNI. N means don't translate or don't resolve the IP addresses, just record it as the IP address itself, because that's the important part. The second N just means don't translate the port number. Just show me the actual number. Don't tell me if it's HTTP or something else. I is the interface on that box, and then dest host that IP address that you're controlling. The reason I limit it to what's destined to your host is if it's coming off of your host, you already know what that is. It is the images and the files and things that you already control. And what you're really interested in is what's coming in. By limiting it to that, you can really limit the scope of what you're looking at and make it much more apparent and easier to find evidence inside. The UDP and SYN the UDP floods, the ICMP floods, and the SYN floods can all be spoofed. So those particularly are not evidence that you can use against anyone. They can actually be usually intentionally spoofed to be someone else to make it a problem for you, as in faking a government agency's IP address, having your servers reflect back and attack them, or if there's anyone for you to call, you wind up calling some department, which has nothing to do with anything because the whole thing is spoofed. But that's information that you want to get and record, even if it's not usable. The TCP get floods, which is what Anonymous's light low orbit ion cannon was primarily using, require the TCP handshake. Because of that, it cannot be spoofed. Any information that's transmitted after that handshake is usable as evidence. That IP address, specifically at that timestamp, did something. Now, who was in control of their computer at the time or anything else is something else. But you can specifically go to a carrier and say, this IP address over and over again was flooding me with traffic. If you have a PCAP of 5,000 packets, you can grab a bunch of IP addresses in there. Just look up who controls those IP addresses. This is the evidence trail. The IP address is the only thing that matters. So, if you've got, for instance, 10,000 IP addresses that you've recorded over time, most of those carriers are not going to work with you. It's beyond their privacy statements. It's they just don't want to get involved. Maybe they don't keep records and things have changed and it's different. But if there's 10% out of that, if there's 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 carriers or providers, maybe they happen to be another university, maybe it happens to be another corporation who records and monitors their own network. If you've recorded the incident on your side and you can provide the carriers with that information, it's much easier for them to give you more information before they rotate their logs daily, before they rotate it weekly. It's right there at their fingertips. And the quicker you go to them and request the information, the easier it is to get. So, TCP dump really needs to happen on the server that you're running on. You can do it with span ports and something else, but that's usually more complicated. In every Linux distro, it's just like yum install TCP dump or apt-get install TCP dump. So it's really easy to get. For Windows, you go to winpcap.org. PCAP is the language of, or the output of the file, and the people who created TCP dump for Linux have also kind of branched but maintained the Windows version of that program. So it is very, very similar. It works in almost identical the same way. It's not identical, but for usable purposes, usability purposes, it is. So, number 4, the public response to what happens when you get attacked. If you'll think about when Anonymous attacked Visa and MasterCard, I don't remember seeing a response. I don't remember seeing anyone standing up with a MasterCard billboard behind them. I don't remember hearing audio on the radio of anyone really saying anything. A lot of people talking about it, but from MasterCard and Visa, no real response other than, yes, we were attacked. They didn't set an expectation of we're going to be back up in so many hours. They didn't say that we've got 100 people working on it. They basically didn't say anything. I'd like to contrast that with the operations on ACS Law and HB Gary. So I'll let y'all read that for a minute and I'll describe it. Does anybody know who ACS Law is? Okay. It's a legal firm, or was a legal firm, in Great Britain. I thought it would be particularly interesting as it relates to digital evidence here. They were prosecuting file sharers for distributing movies, basically pirating movies. They were doing it in a rather sleazy way in that they would have an IP address and then they would send really threatening, demanding letters, demanding huge amounts of money. Then they would negotiate it down to a little bit less money. Then they were collected. And it was basically an extortion ring by a lawyer. The Pirate Bay was taken down for a while, and Anonymous got mad at that and formed Operation Payback. They needed someone to attack because of that. So ACS Law became the representation of what Anonymous was angry about. When they DDoSed this little lawyer's website, this was his response. It was only down for a few hours. I have far more concern over the fact that my train turning up 10 minutes late or having to queue for a coffee than them wasting my time with this sort of rubbish. Which I think is probably a typical response of any business manager who has a website that they don't really care about. His hosting provider said, we can no longer host you. You have to go somewhere else. They moved their website to a new host. When they brought the new website back up, they left the backup file of the server publicly available. And people just downloaded the entire backup of ACS Law's website and his email because he had them on the same server. Anonymous did not even hack into this guy's equipment. They just hit him over a weekend, took down his website, made him react in a way that wasn't planned. They made him trip up, that he publicly made all of his information available. And that was that's how that DDoS turned out. Is it wasn't this huge thing that made massive news because of its size, of its scale, or anything else. They just bumped someone a little bit off of their center. They made a huge mistake. This guy's email showed how he was talking about what he was doing was basically extortion. That he wasn't sure about the legal means of what he was even accusing people of, but he was making so much money he didn't care, and he was just going to keep doing it. His law firm has now been completely shut down. He's being sued by the British legal system and is in court for all that. But as it pertains to digital evidence, I think it's very important how this law firm that nobody's ever heard of was targeted by that people in the first slide who just wear anonymous masks and make dumb jokes and maybe care about one thing once a year got this guy. The other example, the fourth operation of Operation Anonymous, was Operation H.B. Gary. Does anybody heard of H.B. Gary? Okay, a few people. H.B. Gary is actually a massive security information company, and they supply the United States government with a lot of information, and they sell it for a lot of money. The husband of the president of H.B. Gary has been a presenter multiple times at Black Hat. He runs a site called rootkit.com where he collects information from other people that have been infected so that he can analyze it and provide that information to the government. One of their subsidiaries called H.B. Gary Federal was this guy named Aaron Barr, and he decided that to get publicity for his company, he was going to expose Anonymous. So he targeted them, chatted with them online on the IRC servers, started to correlate Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts, and then said that he could profile the top leaders of Anonymous and was going to get them. He did an interview with the Financial Times, so in a real public way, he said that he was targeting them. This was on a Friday. Overnight, Anonymous DDoSed his website and kind of made a point and got that out there. The next thing they did was hack into all of his accounts. They used a MySQL injection to get inside his web server. The passwords that were saved inside that web server were reused for email. They were reused for Twitter and LinkedIn and all this public other accounts that had emailed inside of the corporate email system. They then went to this rootkit.com, and they decided to make it a target because it was just cool, because it had a name in the hacker community. And they had the emails from the corporate system, and they had control of it so they could send. So the other administrator for rootkit.com was one of the top security people at Nokia. Now, that's, now we're talking about H.B. Gary, okay, someone who supplies a lot of information to the government. We're talking about rootkit.com, someone who's a member of the Black Hat community, and Nokia, one of the biggest cell phone providers, and is rather known for the security of their phones. With control of the corporate email account, they just asked the Nokia guy, their friends, hey, I'm traveling, I'm on a trip, I forgot my password, could you reset it for me? Then emails back a few minutes later and says, hey, I forgot the username on the account. Is it this or that? And then the guy from Nokia just emails him back and gives him the account name. So the guy from Nokia, his friend, gave away the username and the password to rootkit.com, a site specifically geared toward malware analysis, and you would think under attack by hackers. In rootkit.com, they got, out of this hack, approximately 70,000 emails from so many people it's hard to go over, but I'll leave it at that. But they got 70,000 emails of all of the people they've been talking to. Go ahead.
Just one thing you might want to admit, they actually now have them on BitTorrent and zip files to correspondence with the NSA, correspondence with the Senate, correspondence with the State Department, correspondence with the House of Representatives. So they're actually in separate zip files now, so you can see exactly the emails that are conversing with those different agencies.
Great. I didn't know they'd been indexing them now to that degree.
Yes.
But that's all. It's so much information, like the WikiLeaks leaks. It's so much information that there's just, these golden nuggets of information from, as he was saying in the back, from the Senate, from NSA, from other big name companies. This hack happened in less than 1 day of Anonymous deciding to do it. The target is a well-respected, security-cleared organization. They are out there publicly stirring up the hornet's nest, saying, we're going after these people. And it took less than 1 day to own their entire organization. So when I was going to do this talk, it was strictly going to be about DDoS. And it was going to be about, recording this or that or tracking down things. So that's why I reduced it kind of that one slide. My point is that it's just a piece of it, and that there are so many other failings in security, in organization, and in communication and response that it doesn't take a huge attack to knock someone off balance. And that if you don't have some process laid out, even if it's not the perfect plan, do you have communication with the people? Because, as I said, when you get attacked, it's probably going to last at least 48 hours, and everybody's got to sleep at least once. Power has to be transitioned to someone else in your organization, the decision-making process. So who are going to be those people? What are they going to pass along to the other organization to let people know what's going on? At HB Gary, apparently nobody knew, the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. And it was at every step of their organization, from their public-facing websites to reusing passwords among different accounts to a friend giving away the root password. So these are some of the links. This is the full explanation of ACS law and how they were targeted and so easily bumped off course. This here is Forbes, where Aaron Barr is interviewed and reacts to the hack, where he basically said, I didn't expect that they would take it that far. It's mind-boggling to me that someone would go out and purposefully do this and then get so easily owned in doing it. It confounds me to think that this is the standard of security professionalism in the United States, and that these are the people protecting us, or at least who are getting paid to protect us, and acting like this. That whether you are pro or anti-Anonymous or WikiLeaks or all of those events and happening, I think you can't stand back and look at all of them collectively and say that all of them were easily avoidable. And that it's only the reaction of the targets that made them news and made them events. And that if you sit down and prepare and think and communicate and don't panic, then you can survive getting attacked. Thank you. Is any questions?
I think you stated it, but I didn't quite catch it. When was the ACS law was attacked and they just took down the website? What was the action they did that actually ended up when they, ran with it? They did something you said that caused even more information to be exposed.
Anonymous attacked the acslaw.com website. The reaction of their hosting provider was to turn them off. Their provider didn't want to deal with it at all and said to ACS Law, you got to go somewhere else. So they were given access to their server to move their information, okay, somewhere else. But in the process for reinitializing a new server, they left the backup file, the massive backup of the first server, in a public directory that anyone could download. So it wasn't a hack of their system. It was the reaction to the small little DDoS, which made them move, and that's what happened. Okay, thank you.